Welcome to Life Science Marketing Radio, the podcast where marketing leaders inside and outside the sciences share their creative ideas and practical approaches to increasing your marketing ROI. Here's your host, Chris Connor.
All right. Isabelle Verniers is a partner at the Marketing Technology and Innovation Institute based in Belgium, also known as MTI Squared. Isabelle, welcome to Life Science Marketing Radio.
Thank you, Chris. Nice to be here.
So we are going to talk about a couple of things today. We're going to talk about upskilling scientists to commercial roles, and then a little bit about synthetic personas. So not entirely unrelated, all marketing related. But first, just for context, tell us about the Marketing Technology and Innovation Institute to give us some context for what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So MTI Squared actually started as a university spin-off. So the founder is Professor Stefan Stremmers. And we specialize in helping companies upskill their employees, so develop commercial and innovation competencies. That's where the academic link also comes in nicely. We have a passion for upskilling, for educating people, and it's nice to do that with people in companies, so focused on lifelong learning. And we've been working with a lot of life science companies over the last couple of years, like GSK, Novartis, Grünenthal, Biotechne, Baxter. So my PhD was actually on innovations in life science industry, and Stefan's specialty in marketing also lies there. So we have a natural sympathy, I would say, and expertise by now in working with.
Is that how you met Hillary Graham, who connected us?
Yes. So indeed. So when we were doing basically a program on setting up innovation portfolio and developing innovation competencies with Assuragen, now Biotechne, that's when I got in contact with Hillary and have been connected ever since.
Nice. All right. So let's talk about this upskilling. You've helped a lot of scientists transition into commercial roles. What are some of the common mindset shifts or skills gaps that you see when helping R&D teams engage earlier in the market?
Yeah, good question. I think if I may bring a little bit of a nuance, I think a lot of the work we've been doing is more to also upskill R&D people, scientists, to open up to the commercial side of things. Never, I think, is it our intent to make them switch position or switch from R&D to commercial, but our programs are a lot focused on how do you expand that reach a bit of the great expertise that R&D people and scientists typically have. But the innovation story is that the R&D part and the commercial part need to nicely blend and avoid that it becomes this valley of death for innovations. And that's where our bringing a commercial mindset or some commercial acumen to R&D people has been indeed what we have been focusing on. And I think what makes it so nice to do that is the whole mindset of R&D and scientists is it's a lot focused on accuracy, and it's a lot focused on features, avoiding uncertainty, testing until you know for sure. And then you have the commercial side, which is a bit more on we sometimes need to quickly iterate, we need to validate, and we need to deal with this ambiguity. And I think that's where then, when you ask the biggest gap, or I would say more like the upskilling opportunity is to try and let them open up to embracing a little bit of that uncertainty without losing rigor, which I generally, I think is super important. But in the go-to-market, in the launch story, you need to have a bit of that commercial acumen.
I think this is just a fascinating psychological thing I've heard,
Hmm.
similar stories before, people probably approaching it differently than you do, but like founders who are often scientists, they want whatever they're building to be perfect before they show it to anybody, because that's how you're trained as a scientist. Like
Yeah.
it's everything's got to be right before we publish this paper. And then on the commercial side, yeah, I've probably experienced this myself. You have to adopt a willingness to just say, here's what we have. Can you use it? Tell us what would make it better, with the full expectation that this is not the last go
Yeah,
round, right?
exactly. It's that pivoting logic, and it's that yeah, we often refer to also in training programs to the minimum viable products or the minimum lovable product, but it's typically not something engineers, scientists love to hear, because indeed it breathes the or it makes it clear that it's imperfect. um, and I think it's about what I think has really helps a lot is talking more about assumptions, and just showing like there's also methodologies that we use for that. And how can you make people that seek certainty, how can you make them feel more comfortable with embracing uncertainty? And for that, you need to let them ventilate all assumptions that are underlying something, and basically also map those out. How certain are you? How quickly can you validate that? Is that something that takes a lot of time to validate? Okay, then it's a serious assumption, and there you won't quickly be able to pivot maybe. But there's a lot of assumptions that are underlying your go-to-market strategy that can often be quickly validated. And if you have a bit of that, like that wide range of, oh, there's so many assumptions underlying our business opportunity, um, with these ones we can be okay with pivoting a bit more. With these ones, they're non-negotiables, these we need to really solidly. Then I think you, in a way, like I like what you said, it's about also a mindset thing, right? It's how a scientist is wired, is perfection, and it's avoiding uncertainty. So I think our upskilling part there, or work there, is more how can you make that feel more comfortable. And it's not about giant steps, it's about small steps where you gradually increase that comfort.
Yeah, I think about this a lot. Like, there are a lot of areas in life where the ability to embrace uncertainty would be helpful. And
More than ever, I think, really. Yeah, yeah. And it's often like these the words of agility and and resilience. But I do think more than ever now, it is important to have that and to not be stuck, because often it's also about really only seeing one path sometimes and being convinced of that, or only becoming convinced once you have enough evidence. And I think that's changing, and that's the speed of things also to bring innovations to market. Speed is important for the viability of the ID, the profitability of the ID. So yeah, there's not always the luxury of having really a lot of time to validate things.
yeah,
But it's interesting, of course, in some companies or some industries, it's easier said than done, because when we're talking about life sciences, we're not talking about quickly testing something. There's the clinical trials. There's so much. But even then, there's companies like Merck. We've been working with them for over since 2009. So that's already a long time. And it's also about embedding that mindset continuously in there, even though they're doing extremely rigorous research. How can you more quickly figure out whether an ID is viable or not, and viable or desirable, feasible? So all of these things mixed together. And I do think that it's people and the companies that are more flexible in or are more eager to pivot whenever they figure something out that it's not working. That those ones will thrive more than people who are more stuck on one pot.
yeah. Talk a little bit. It occurs to me that risk, understanding risk is the other side of the equation. Like, I'm going to embrace uncertainty, but hopefully in a smart way, to say,
In
all
a
right,
smart
if
way.
this doesn't
Yeah.
work perfectly, is it the end of the world, or is it just a learning opportunity and we advance from there?
And that's why I love also working with people who still love that rigor, because it's what you say, it's about smart testing, smart validation. It's not about quick and dirty. Sometimes we in our trainings talk about like for quantification of a market. I mean, that's a really difficult thing to do, and a really difficult thing to convince other people of, that your quantification is correct, and what is correct even. And so we talk about back of the envelope calculations, and I love that in terms of back of the envelope calculation. It's not a quick and dirty calculation. It's one where there's smart assumptions underlying it, but you don't have a point estimate, or you don't have the exact number. You still need to be okay with a range. But for sure, I'm all in for, and a lot of what we do is focused on that. How can you do smart validation and smart risk calculation in some sense? So that's definitely something that's important.
All right, let's talk about embedding habits like voice of customer research. So what does it take to build those habits across a company? Just so that, again, so you understand where you're headed and can learn from what the market wants.
Yeah, and I think our previous discussion on also there, not wanting to know it all, and letting go a little bit of the perfect voice of customer is already helpful, because what we see in our work on innovation is how important it is to embrace it very early on. Even if you have a very raw idea still, you're of course not going to get then a perfect voice of customer, because you are still looking also at the opportunity. So you don't know exactly what you're looking for. You're basically doing a bit of market sensing. And in that market sensing, like originally talking to a couple of people, doing some desk research, also there again, the comfort with not knowing it all needs to be there. And how to make that a habit. I'm of course in the training business, so also in the book we recently wrote on how do you now build basically innovation talent, we talk a lot about we don't believe in these one-off initiatives or trainings where you learn how to embed voice of customer in your innovation work, for example. I think it's really, I don't know why you know the 10, 20, 70 like pyramids in how you also develop competencies. 10% they often say is you need to transfer knowledge, like voice of customer. What are the market sensing techniques out there? You can follow, in essence, an e-learning on that somewhere, and you'll know. That doesn't mean, however, that you already apply it in your work. And so for that, you need to also talk a lot to peers, and you need to kind of establish more of that sharing, such that it motivates you to apply that. But 70% comes from learning on the job. So if you're working on innovation projects, to continuously then try and embed voice of customer. And for that, you need to have that community around you in your company. You can't be the only one who wants to do voice of customer research. It needs to really be something that you apply a lot. So habits, I think, no one-off trainings, which is typically in the one-day workshop type of thing, and magically everything will change. That's not how the brain, that's not how we function. That's not how the brain functions. So a lot of sharing of learnings, learning also from the things that didn't go well, and making sure that an organization establishes a way of sharing those stories also. And then, I think then you come into a drumbeat rhythm. We often call it the drumbeat process, or something that you need to have of regular check-ins, because that's how habits are formed, right? By small changes every day, or small, being exposed to something small every day that reminds you that it's important.
Yeah. Two things stood out to me there. So one, I'd never heard the phrase market sensing, but I love it.
Yeah. Okay.
For the idea of, like, we have an idea let's see who might be interested in this and I presume, give us their thoughts on how they would use it, what might they want to be a little different or whatever. It's not so much looking for the people who want exactly what I have in mind,
Mm-hmm.
but here's an idea of something I could do. What else? How else might that be useful for things I haven't even thought of?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and my education lies in marketing. So indeed, having that openness to explore a bit, you can also call it exploration, or but market sensing to me really means like not with already a fixed agenda, talking to people or observing people, but really with that openness of what is actually important to potential customers.
Right. And then the drumbeat thing is just like, this has to happen on a regular basis, like just like the beat
Training the
of a drum.
muscle,
And
I think.
yeah,
What I loved, I think that came maybe from a conversation with Hillary. Actually, Hillary is also in our a talent story in our book, and I think she mentions it there. That she says it's like you need to train for any sports that you want to do. You also need to train while building in a way that muscle of whether it's now voice of customer or in general like innovative spirit. It's something that doesn't happen overnight, only with consistency, and we call it then our drum beat rhythm that we bring. uh, I think that's also where our value sometimes lies. Then, as someone coming in and that is not part of that daily operation, is it's sometimes a bit easier to bring that drum beat or to impose a little bit that drum beat before it becomes a habit. Because the moment it's truly a habit, then people don't need that. And then they don't need that drum beat thing anymore, or they can do it themselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
nice. All right, so this works. This is a good segue to talk about synthetic personas, because we've been talking about voice of customer, and now I presume some of that information could go into the synthetic persona. And I've only recently heard about these from you and another colleague. So let's explain what they are, and then how are they being used in market research in B2B.
Yeah, so synthetic personas, in a way, thanks to AI, Gen AI, you now have access, we all know it, to a lot of information that is out there. If you think of traditional ways of making personas, typically it's based on doing a lot of interviews with different people, different customers, whether it's now B2B or B2C. And then you kind of find an archetype of a customer that is out there. You call it a persona. Yeah, a synthetic persona is nothing else than, in a way, and you could say an AI-generated archetype using all the information that is out there. The large language models do that nicely. Is they capture all the information and they kind of make a persona that is based on that information. Without, in a way, I talk to hundreds of people and I do it myself.
So what would the input be for that? Like, would you just say, this is my idea? Like, I'm trying to understand what information that generative AI starts with, or you're using it based on what it already knows.
Yeah, and there I think you see different applications. So for sure, you can prompt Gen AI very nicely by stating which type of customer you are looking for, and you want specific information on that. And um, so the prompting of the type of customer is one way to look at it. What a lot of other or what a lot of companies are also doing is kind of explore a bit what is all the information of the large language models giving them if they're looking for a specific group. So you're not prompting, you're just saying what could be the possible personas that are out there based on all the information that is out there. So it gives a nice starting point in a way to to start figuring out an ID and to go in dialogue almost. Also, there's also applications out there where you can go in dialogue then with those type of synthetic personas and how they would respond to specific product services that you offer them.
So now I'm thinking like I'm sure the generative AI could have an entire universe of personas across all kinds of markets and products and industries. And you could perhaps narrow them down by saying, this is our idea.
Yeah.
What are the personas in your vast collection that you could imagine of people that would respond to this? Is that
exactly that? Yeah. And it's an interesting it's interesting times because a lot of companies are in different, I would say, levels of maturity also to, I don't want to call it play around with that because that's not playing, but it's really discovering what helps in specific situations. Like if you're in a very um, very front end phase of your innovation process, so very exploratory, you're gonna interact with Gen AI very differently than if you want to use it to validate really an ID. That's going to be a different, because then you feed it with much more information than in the early phase. So, but I think for market research companies, it's also fascinating to see how they deal with that and how they will deal with that in the future when they do their market research services or offer their market research services to companies.
Yeah. So, I mean, this sort of goes to the next question. Like, I'm sure, as you mentioned, some companies are skeptical about using these things, and others would fully take advantage of synthetic personas. I'm curious what separates those who are eager to adopt it from the resistors, and then separately from that, if you do adopt this approach, what goes into validating those personas?
So on the adopting versus or the people or companies who are a bit more resistant, I think that comes down to the first part of our conversation, also on how risk avoidant or how much need there is to understand it from A to Z, and the confidence they have in that. We see that actually with the companies where often then that data coming from the synthetic personas or the synthetic research, you could say, is being used to convince leadership of that. Well, we see big differences between how easily leadership accepts that some research is coming or some outcomes are coming from that type of research versus others. Some easily accept, others say like, oh, we need benchmarking of 20 more companies, how they're doing that and how they're using that. And that's, I think it really comes down to seeking certainty in the results also. So, and that explains where the different maturity levels also come from. I think something behaviorally, almost psychological, is underlying that of the people who need to do something with those results.
I'm curious. I mean, I'm thinking about one, companies that would try to create a synthetic persona or whatever, or any use generative AI at any level. And I think about my own usage of it and the tools that I've used over the last 2 years, but particularly the last year, and how, and I'm trying to be a little cautious because it's easy to be satisfied with the answers you get. But what really often impresses me is there is no question that I can ask an AI or ask it to do, for example, in a vibe coding situation, even where it doesn't understand what I meant. Like I'm often typing a prompt thinking, what's the chances it's never heard of this idea before?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so far, the chances are zero. Like
It understands you
I've
completely.
never had a thing like you may or may not give me a correct answer, but it's clear that it knew what I wanted, no matter how obscure the thing is that I'm asking about.
Yeah, yeah, it makes you wonder, right? how how many other people are also then thinking in the same way, because it's yeah, if it understands that, others must have also thought in that
Right.
direction.
And in a coding scenario, would, create a thing that I asked for. Like I'm constantly amazed that I'm sitting here talking to my computer and it will do the thing that I asked it, because I came from the age of punch cards.
Yeah, 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 it is for sure. That's an yeah, someone who does exactly what you
And
want.
now, yeah, it's kind of crazy, and it doesn't always get everything exactly right, but we can iterate and figure it out, and it somehow it gets there. It
Yeah, and I
kind of
think that's the
stunning.
journey that we see a lot of companies being on in a way, because the behavior you have with Gen AI, the behavior I have with Gen AI, it's like in an organization, a lot of different people have different behaviors. Like, how do you streamline that, and how do you, yeah, get them all a bit on the same page on what to do? We see that, like, indeed, prompting for commercial profiles, prompting for people in R&D. Um, in a way, there's new protocols to be developed. Like, how do you do market validation of a new ID with smart Gen AI prompting? I think that's also interesting. There's now a lot of people who are just doing separate stuff, and it's not always clear then where, for example, a market quantification comes from. I think that's what we're seeing now for people who are already a little bit in that, beyond that phase of doing things independently of each other. How do you now again build in a way some new ways of doing things, Gen AI enabled? Uh,
Yeah. It
yeah,
occurs to me, given what I just described, that the real risk, like if I'm building a product using AI, isn't in what the AI doesn't know. It's in what I don't know about what I don't know. Right. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
building an app and I don't know enough to ask about security, for example, it won't be in there.
yeah,
So I have to
yeah,
at
yeah,
least do
yeah.
that. And
So,
then I would hand it to somebody else and say, how do you check this thing? Because I don't know.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, you raise an interesting thing on the AI versus or and human, and that in the context of talent development, that's for sure also yeah, something that is now high on companies and people's agendas. Yeah.
So that transitions into the next question, which is thinking about whether AI is going to augment or replace certain jobs. So, how do you see AI changing commercial roles? Are there jobs that will be eliminated, or jobs just be made easier? I always think, people say that, entry level jobs won't exist, but then how do people get started? Right? Somebody
Yeah.
like we have to train people, or are those things that would everybody would be happy to be done with and move right on to the next level? I don't know.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, right? Like, what are the real human, the real human skills to have to also be able to differentiate yourself in the future? And yeah, so interesting discussion on automation versus augmentation, and sometimes even yeah, people talk about amplifying talent. I think for sure there's tasks, and you're seeing it already in many companies. There's tasks that can be automated in commercial. If we're talking about commercial functions, in commercial functions. And that can be very different. It can be, for example, when we talked about market research, there are a lot of things that, if you think about it, in the past, so you had interviews, you had survey data coming out of that, and wow, yeah, you needed the human to think and to draw conclusions out of that. That's a nice example. Like, a big part of those tasks can be automated. But when we talk about augmentation, that's when the human still comes in. I think there's also tasks there that where the human intervention really makes the difference in towards making decisions. So um, I think there is an advantage in some tasks that can be automated. If you think purely about then marketing communication, for example, there is now, and so it's so easy to have inspiration of, let's say, 10 different ways of positioning your product and how to bring it to the market. So you don't start from a blank sheet anymore. Um, but then we're not talking about automation at all. We're talking about, in a way, augmentation that me as a human or a commercial profile, a marketeer, let's say, is nicely, has almost like a sparring partner on his side, um, and that allows for more, in a way, you could say, for more creativity than that human. But then the human, of course, needs to have very good, I wouldn't call it, I don't like the word soft skills. I think I like it more when people now refer to it as like the power skills, because they become, I think, more
Yeah.
powerful. They become more powerful than ever, like the art of critical thinking or being able to empathize, being able to listen very carefully, connecting the dots. I think those are then skills that will really be more important to, yeah, by being helped while being helped by Gen AI or AI, that you can still differentiate and be more creative or just be different thanks to the human intervention. In innovation, there's also a lot of things happening there. There's research being done, academic research also that I'm following that. And results are in a way mixed, but you start seeing a bit of a trend is that if you look at ideation and ideation, you can easily use Gen AI also for that. Or you can do it together with Gen AI. So I ideate, but I add a layer beyond what Gen AI says. And I think you see it's easy to get more ideas by using Gen AI. It's even when you look at whether they would be better for customers, there's actually even better ideas often in there. But what you also see because of the use of Gen AI, there's in a way sometimes less diversity of ideas. So you get more of the same thing. So, and it makes
Mm.
sense, right? If we're all using Gen AI, we all become a little bit more similar. You sometimes see that in LinkedIn posts also, like that there's a Gen AI signature almost if you don't adapt it. So if you don't augment it with your human competencies, then all of these things are exactly the same. Not exactly, but still similar. um, yes, I think, and we see that also in commercial organizations where a lot of in a way, thinking is now going into like developing learning visions also for the future and what are the future competencies where that people or companies really need to invest in versus which other ones are maybe tasks that can be automated, and it's not a bad thing because it frees up mm, the human brain for other things.
Right. I'm thinking about the human brain. A couple of the thing that you said that got my attention there was about, options for positioning, like different
Mm-hmm.
ideas for how to position a product. And thinking like one, more ideas is probably better. And I can imagine a lot of people sitting in a room, and maybe some of them are more imaginative or some
Yeah.
of them are more vocal, and a reasonably good idea comes out and it gets latched onto. I'm thinking like genetic drift as a life scientist. Like
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
things exist because a random thing was really successful early on and then took off, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it was the best option, but it was the best option right then. And AI can help open your eyes probably to other ideas, at least to talk about,
Yeah, and
and
if
take
you
some
communicate
emotion
well with
out.
it, yeah, I think so. I heard someone recently say it's like many things in life. Sometimes garbage in, garbage out. I think
Yeah.
that applies nicely here also. It's the smarter you communicate with it, and sometimes the more creative you communicate with it, the better outcomes you get. Uh, And that's, in a way, that I think that's also becoming an art of, and that's where your own authentic human being comes still in, because how I will interact with Gen AI is different than how you will interact. So per definition, hopefully we will get different things out of it. And so for things like ideation, it's indeed wonderful in terms of augmentation, because sometimes you have people who really, like, they don't like blank sheets.
Yeah.
And I'm for example like that. Like, I sometimes paralyzed with a blank sheet, but as soon as there's something on the blank sheet, then I gain speed and I gain creativity. So it's opening up those things, right? So I see many opportunities, but you raised the thing also of like junior people. And recently I was also at university and giving like a guest lecture on almost lessons in life, and made me think a bit like, what advice do you give to junior people now? And I think it comes down to what I just said. There is like these very human skills, like networking, like empathizing, like sharp critical thinking, going the extra mile in terms of attitude. I think it's those things that will still, for people with those skills, there will always be room. But I think for people who are okay with doing the basics and the basic tasks, and think that there's a lot of time to then still grow by doing those in an elementary way, that I think that's where indeed there's the competition of Gen AI, the agentic AI will be. You see sometimes interesting articles. It's not yet a reality, but or in some companies it's maybe becoming a reality, where you have whole teams that are, you don't have colleagues anymore, or human colleagues, but you will have in the future more agents as colleagues. Makes you think. I don't think anyone knows where it's going. But for sure, it's a bit tougher, I think, on the labor markets. And at the same time, it needs to be an optimistic message also to junior people. Like, there is room to stand out, but it's just gonna require a bit of resilience and smart work.
Yeah, for sure. Isabel Verniers, this has been a treat to talk to you. Thank you for your insights. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. It was indeed very nice.
My pleasure. Hey, if you're still listening, that tells me you enjoyed the podcast. But don't tell me, tell your friends, and I'll be back soon with another episode. Okay, you can tell me too. Send an email, chris@lifesciencemarketingradio.com. Bye-bye.